Welcome back, everyone, to the weekly Armchair Kickoff podcast. This is our United show. This is Devil's Advocate, and today I'm joined by a very special guest. I'm joined today by author, writer, producer, Mr. Wayne Barton, and has recently been involved in the making of the George Best movie on sport, and also he has written many books himself as an author. He's wrote the books and Beckham, the making of a megastar. We're here. We're enjoyed by very good here today on the weekly Armchair Kickoff podcast. First of all, Wayne, how are you going? How are you feeling today?
I'm not bad, mate. I had my second COVID jab over the weekend, so I'm just sort of surviving through that at the moment. But I'm all good, thank you.
That's very good. That's good to hear. And look, I suppose anyone who's had the COVID jab, I've heard that it's you kind of feel a bit rough for a couple of days. You would be on the mend, so and I'm glad that you're feeling okay. So that's good to hear. Wayne, you've been involved in many different projects in terms of writing, producing, and ghostwriting. I suppose we'll start from the start. Like, what was your inspiration to kind of get involved in writing and kind of football and kind of take that pathway in your life?
Well, I mean, I've always loved football, always loved writing. In fact, my love of writing predated my love of football. Really, I've always wanted to be a writer, and it just so happened that the two interests combined. I was very lucky to get the opportunity to write my first book in 2012 with the late Brian Greenough. I was writing. I was running a website at the time with some former players, and lucky enough to sort of interview them on a weekly basis. And the opportunity to interview Brian came about, and that's how I got into writing books, basically, because he wanted to write his autobiography. It needed a little bit of convincing from myself. And then, I never looked back from there, really. Just being very lucky that one thing has led to another with the doors that have opened. And here we are. I don't know how many books, maybe 20 books in, and just hopefully another more than 20 more. Got to keep those bills getting paid.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I suppose to kind of have two passions of your life kind of coincide with each other, I think that's absolutely fantastic. Like, I think football, look, especially in the UK, I have a lot of friends, family in the UK. Football is like religion in the UK. It really is. And to kind of see that your passion for writing coincided with that, like, you do a job that you enjoy. So obviously you never really work a day in your life, do you?
No, that's fair. I absolutely believe that. You're completely right. The other thing is as well, when you get older, you get disillusioned with a lot of stuff in life, and maybe in football as well. You become a little bit detached with the football team. People always talk about modern football. When you get older, you get grumpier, and I'm no different with that. But I've been lucky that, for example, I've just finished working with the Brazilian twins, Fabio and Rafael, and just working on their story has sort of attached me back to liking modern football in a way. So I'm very fortunate like that I can rediscover some of my motivation. Do you know what I mean? Rediscover some of the love for the game. It's easier when I do a weekly podcast with Paul Parker, and he was in the team that I loved growing up. He's one of my adolescent heroes.
Yeah.
So I've always got that. Every Monday morning, I've got that feeling of excitement. I'm talking to one of my heroes, so that never leaves me. But that's a nostalgic thing. As I grow older as well, it's more and more nostalgic. So to get that sort of connection with the modern game as well, then of course you've got players like Marcus Rashford who sort of they extend away from sport and just become this massive global presence that make you proud to be a United fan, and proud to sort of engage with that side of the club again. So and you do become a little bit disillusioned as you get older, but this, like you said, that idea of never working is certainly one that rings true for me, because I absolutely enjoy it. I was working with a former United player the other day, and I said, something I said almost to everyone I work with, is that I wish that, if I had the opportunity to write a book with every United player that ever lived, then, I'd be a very happy man. So, absolutely enjoy it.
Like, it's great to see something that you really enjoy doing. And like, when you see people who have passions for kind of their pastimes or their job, and to see that kind of coincide, it's a very kind of good and natural thing to see. So I'm very happy for you, in that regard. Recently, you've written the book about Genius, about George Best, and you've also been involved in the documentary on BT Sport. Just talk to us a little about that, because that was a very, very interesting book, a very interesting documentary, and obviously you're working side by side with Callum Best. What was all that process like, and kind of working with the Best family, and kind of reliving kind of the greatness of George Best?
Yeah, they're two very different projects, really, but so similar as well. The book and the film, obviously, they go hand in hand, because the film is based on the book, or adapted from it at least. The book, for anyone who doesn't know, is a full biography of George's career. It's a footballing story. I don't think that story had been told before. Funnily enough, one of the best footballers that has ever existed. So I did work with some of George's family on that. His brother and sisters provided the forward for the book. I interviewed Ian for it. Ian's been very supportive. And then when it came to doing the film, I've worked with BT Sport before. Tom Boswell, the director there, was absolutely magnificent. I've got to give a shout out to Tom. He's the best in his field, and we worked on a film on United's relegation a few years ago, Too Good to Go Down, and from that, really, he said that he wanted to do something on George. So because we're always in contact, good friends now, he sort of reached out to me about the book, and we talked about how we could adapt it for film. The thing about the book is it's a proper celebration of George as a footballer. And telling that story on screen is probably a little bit more difficult, because in the words I can choose everything that goes in. And in a film, obviously you got the visual impact of that, and everyone knows that George started drinking, and his physicality changed and everything like that. So you have to be careful with how you celebrate him. And the creative decision was taken to end when he scores the goal at Wembley and wins the Ballon d'Or, effectively, to sort of crystallise that period of what we were looking to celebrate, so it can be just a celebration of his football. And from there, when we were talking about making that, I thought that Callum would be a good fit for it, because we'd start talking about a narrator and a presenter. I thought Callum would be a good fit for it, but because I'd already done the book and it had a heavy family presence on it, I wasn't sure if it'd be too contrived, so I didn't want to bring it up. But the director, Tom, brought it up himself to sort of mention Callum's involvement, and asked if I would reach out to Callum. I did, and Callum, he's been very supportive of the book throughout. For the last few months, when he knew that I was writing it, I'd tell him every now and again that I'd got a new interview or something like that. He was always very supportive of it, really appreciated the message I was trying to deliver with the book. So when the opportunity came to have sort of Callum involved with the film, he was, he couldn't have been more engaging, more on board with it. He was so good. So he and I worked together, and we worked together on the scripts, basically. So the scripts that you hear Callum discuss in the film, where he does the voiceover and everything that he says, he and I worked on that together, with Tom as well. I've got to give Tom again another shout out for that. And the thing is, yeah, you mentioned what the experience was like working with Callum on that, and some of the words were taken from the book, so some of the words were passages from the book. So hearing George Best's son read words that I wrote about him was it was. I don't even know how you describe an experience like that, because it just shouldn't come along in your life, and it was very. I don't know. It was an honour. It was humbling. It was incredible. Callum was, like I said, very engaging, very gracious. Everything that he's done in promotion for the film, he's always been very gracious about the book and my writing. But the way in which he engaged with the message of the story, because, obviously he's talked about his dad many times, and a lot of people want to know the speculation, and they want to know all the controversy and everything like that. I'd always stressed to Callum that it was going to be a positive thing. We weren't looking at the speculation or the controversy. We were just looking at celebrating George, the footballer. And he was appreciative of that. He was appreciative of the fact that we didn't try and double cross that. You know what I mean? He could have easily got engaged, and then it took a different turn.
Yeah.
And we were true with it throughout. And you know, we walked around the cliff. I walked around the cliff with him, and it's the first time he'd been there since he was 8. And I could see how emotional he was, and it made me emotional watching him reflecting, you know, sinking all in. Then went to Wembley. It was exactly the same down there. So yeah, writing the book was one thing, a great experience, because I talked to a lot of people, former teammates, former opponents, that were so open and thanking me for writing a book about the football, which I'll never forget. But then working on the film, working with Tom, like I said, the master of his trade, and then working with Callum, who, you know, is the son of the greatest player that ever lived, but also Callum is the nicest guy. Just an incredible experience, and I'm glad that so many people seem to have engaged with the idea of what we wanted to do with this film, because let's face it, when you disregard that controversy and you talk about the you don't talk about the drinking or anything like that, you don't talk about the lifestyle or the girls, really, you are running a risk of sort of alienating people, because they were saying that, well, that might not be the real George. But for us, we wanted to celebrate George, the footballer. And I'm glad that so many people seem to have sort of got on board with that message.
Yeah, and like from watching, it's a very interesting documentary. And again, to see, you know, the George, the footballer, being highlighted in such a positive light and his greatness recognized, it was very, very good to see. And when you look at, like, especially me being from Ireland, obviously you have Ireland, Northern Ireland, but like George Best come from this side of the pond. Obviously he adored. One of the greatest ever player, probably the greatest ever player to come from this island. You know, in that regard, see Roy Keane, stuff like that, they would also be held so in high regard. To see kind of the footballer George and being put that into a positive light, and to kind of see his great shine in that documentary and the book, it's good to see. And again, you look at so many players who've come from our football club in Manchester United, and they've been aligned to George Best. Obviously, Cristiano, when he was at the club, people called him a modern day George Best back when he was at the football club. But I don't think any player who's been at our club can really be compared to his. And I think, again, it's good to see that judging of him and the whole aura of George Best was celebrated in such a positive light. And again, you know, hopefully with other work you're doing, so you've obviously worked with Eric Cantona, David, stuff like that. You mentioned Marcus Rashford, someone who I think has been a shining light during this global pandemic. I think he's really shown how positive footballers can be on the pitch, but also off the pitch. Hopefully in a couple of years down the line, there's another documentary, another book about Marcus Rashford and his greatness. Because I think, you know, there's a lot of positive things to kind of look at. And it's always good to take the positives, especially during this tough time too. Because I think this whole pandemic really kind of shown. So you kind of need to take life though, and you never know what's going to happen. So, you know, at the end, you know, again, fantastic work. And, you know, as people are saying in the comments, you know, that you're one of their favorite writers. Reese is here in the comments, one of our podcast regulars comments. And Reese says here that you are one of his writers. Reese does, you know, to see a lot of your work, and Reese is a big fan. So thanks very much, Reese, for the comment. Wayne, kind of talking in terms of Manchester United. Obviously, I know you're a big Manchester United fan. You do a lot of writing on Manchester United, and you do a lot of producing. It's been a very turbulent season for United this season. Obviously, COVID circumstances. You know, we've had a lot of games, finished second in the league, got to Europa League final. You all know, unfortunately, we didn't get the job done on the night. The overall feeling amongst many Manchester United fans is that we've made progress under Solskjaer this season, and we've had, a lot of ups, a lot of downs, but ultimately we've improved dramatically on the season before. What are your overall thoughts on the season that we've had this season, finishing second, getting to the final, and kind of what were your kind of positives, and if you had anything else, did you take anything else from the season that's just passed?
Yeah, I think you covered it pretty well there. I want to say one thing about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is the last sort of 5 or 6 years of watching United, particularly in the sort of 3 or 4 before he came along, they weren't pleasant. It wasn't good to watch. And I'm not talking about trophies or anything like that. I'm talking about watching football on a weekly basis. I wasn't entertained. I liked Louis van Gaal, for the record. I liked him as a coach, and before he came to United, and I appreciated what he was trying to do at United, and I supported him while he was there. I was one of the people who was quite vocal in saying that I thought Jose Mourinho should have got the job when David Moyes got it, and I didn't think he was a bad appointment when he got the job. Although I didn't like what United did to Van Gaal in firing him to get Mourinho in, but I supported Mourinho. And again, there's times that there were times when I thought, back the manager. If you've got a manager like Mourinho, you've invested in him, then back him. But the football that we watched in that 4-year spell was horrendous. They were under Van Gaal. There was 2 years in a row playing against Southampton at home. We didn't have a shot on target. Against with Mourinho, he was unapologetic in being pragmatic and defensive and cagey and protecting the defence, however much it needed protecting, but he was very pragmatic and it was horrible to watch again. And obviously you had the sideshow with Mourinho where he made a lot of problems worse and made a lot of things about himself and caused a lot of conflict and division, which, obviously was one of the biggest reservations of him getting the job in the first place. So once you add all that into the mix, I remember when Ole got the job, and I was, cautious about it. I didn't think it was the right appointment at the time. I thought he didn't have the experience, and I still have concerns about that, to be fair. But the primary thing I wanted to do was enjoy watching United again. I'm not saying that I enjoy watching us all the time. It's frustrating, but I enjoy watching United much more now under Ole than I did the previous 2 managers. I can look forward to watching United on a Saturday instead of dreading what's going to happen. And not just like dreading the 90 minutes. The 90 minutes are kind of like an escape while they were under Mourinho. It was like an escape watching it, as bad as it was, because you knew that it was just going to be controversy and politics for the rest of the week. It was horrible, and you do get that now. You get this old cast off, this sort of shadow that's been cast since he left, because there's still a massive percentage of the support that believe that Mourinho should have stayed for some reason, when it was obvious that he shouldn't have. But then you lead on to where we're going at the moment, how things went last season. I thought when we lost against Spurs, I was thinking the writing was on the wall for Ole, because I couldn't see how he would survive the season, considering the way that the summer transfer window went. And even when it closed and we got sort of Cavani 2 months after he'd been available on a free, and we'd signed all these, Telles and, the players, that it was a lot of panic on that last couple of days. I'm thinking this isn't going to end up well for Ole. But, fair play to Woodward. He didn't pull the trigger. He's left Ole to get on with it. And Ole, to his credit, has turned it around. We've seen the rewards of patience, both for the manager and within the squad, because, there's been a lot of times when, people would have said last summer, get rid of Shaw and give Telles the season. And he didn't. He gave Shaw another chance, and he's been proven right for doing that. So, there's benefits to that patience, as much as we're all frustrated with some of the other areas of the squad where we think he's been a little bit too patient. This is critical summer now, probably, because now we're at a point where we can all see the areas of the team that don't work. We can all see that Lindelof and Bailly as a partnership or as individuals probably isn't for the long term. But Tomney and Fred as individuals probably fine squad players, but as a midfield combination, it's not enough to propel us into a league competing side. And then obviously the concerns that we've got up front as well. These are all massive elements that Ollie's now got to address moving forward, and he's got to be the man brave enough to make those changes and sort of ruthless enough to do that as well, because if not, then he's going to be the latest manager to fall on his sword by not addressing the obvious errors, and they're there. And yes, I'm 100% on board with the idea that the owners have handicapped him. They've tied his hands behind his back to a certain degree, but he's still got money to spend. He still had money to spend. He still had the capability to make big decisions in the squad. He did that with Lukaku and Sanchez after he just came in as manager. So he can do it again. And he's got to do it again. He's got to do it again to take that next step. And I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if he's got that tactical nous to break down those smaller teams or to take United onto the next level, to have a clear tactical plan in the way that Liverpool do, for example, if he's good enough a coach as Klopp. But this is the 12 months what we're going to find the answers out for that. And I will say that Ollie's deserved that chance, as long as we just hope that he gets backed in the right way. We know that it's not the perfect ownership structure, but I think this is the year, and Ollie's deserved this year. He's deserved another year. Listen, we would have all liked to have won the Europa League final, but it came down to a kick missed by a goalkeeper and a kick scored by a goalkeeper. That doesn't have any impact on. It shouldn't have an impact on the way that you see Ollie as a manager. If you were critical of him before, or if you were supportive of him before, those two elements in a penalty shootout were complete lottery. You can be critical of his tactics in the final. I'm an Ollie in guy, but I was certainly critical of his tactics in the final. We're at a critical point for Ollie, and he is too. He's got to see that. He's got to address that. And the way I've likened it, for anyone who's old enough who's watching this, or even if you're not, you can go back and study it yourself. The summer of '89, where Fergie brought in a lot of big players, and everyone will remember that it was 6-7 months of the tide turning against Fergie and him looking like his job was on the rocks. So we could be in for some more turbulence, but I do think that things are turning for the better. But you have to be optimistic, I should say. Should be optimistic at the moment in time. I'm trying to be, but yeah, we'll see. I'm very much on the fence with it. I want Ollie to come good, but I do recognise it's a massive summer and a massive season for him.
Yeah, I think 100%. I'm in agreement. And one thing I always say about this United team, I've said it in the last 6 months. I think this is the most likeable Manchester United team post Sir Alex Ferguson. In terms of style of play, in terms of entertainment, in terms of the togetherness, I think this is the most likable team. Look, you mentioned that. I think we all would have liked to win. That was a freak situation. Going down to Man United win that game, people are talking about a title challenge next season. I think narratives change if United win the Europa League. I think this summer is massive for Solskjaer in terms of recruitment. United need to get a recruitment spot on this summer. It's something I was going to touch on later on the pod, but I think recruitment is massively important for next level, because when you really break it down, Solskjaer has had money to spend, but he hasn't been allowed to get his first targets. Target number 1, target number 2. It's always been target 3 or 4 that he's got. That you mentioned Cavani, he was available 8 weeks before we got him. Again, that's down to poor work. That's done. So I think you look at the structure of the football club. Obviously, there's been new appointments at board level. I think it remains to be seen kind of what happens there in terms of obviously Murtaugh and Darren Fletcher coming in their respective roles and kind of helping Ollie in the background. I think there's areas in the team, in the first team, that need to be addressed. And obviously there's a couple of players who probably need to be moved on, who probably aren't good enough for us to reach the next level. But if we don't nail this transfer window now, especially with the likes of Chelsea, Manchester City, Liverpool are signing players already in the window now as well, it's crucial that we can't let ourselves fall into a top 4 race, really. I think when you look at the quality of the likes of Fernandes, the Pogbas, the Rashfords, Greenwoods of the world, we need to add to that in abundance. Now, obviously, look, in a COVID market, it's probably not going to be as easy as it has been in previous windows. I completely understand that. Financially, no matter who you are, You're probably not going to be, not unless you're Chelsea and you have, you know, a blank checkbook, or Manchester City. If you have, you know, a blank checkbook, then look, by all means, 100%, you know, you have to approach it a different way. But I think when you actually break down Solskjaer in the last two seasons he's been there, 2 years he's been in the job now, you have to say he's done a lot of things right. The youth academy was in a horrible, I won't say a horrible place, but it was in dire straits. It was being neglected under Jose Mourinho. The fitness regime. Manchester United were one of the most unfit teams in the Premier League in terms of the ground covered, in terms of distance covered under Mourinho. When Ollie came in, he said, look, fitness is going to be one of the biggest things we're going to work on. If you actually look at the statistics now, United are up there in terms of one of the fittest teams. I think the big thing in noticing that is the amount of second half comebacks he's had in that many times in terms of getting that second wind. I think that's evident there. I think when you look at the progression of Marcus Rashford in, you know, his time, as I know he's done a lot off the pitch, but you look at Marcus Rashford's progression on the pitch in terms of numbers, in terms of his overall play, he's improved. I think you look at Ollie's use of the academy in the last couple of years, he's done very well in that regard. He's done well to move players on who needed to be moved on, who weren't happy at the football club. And he's like when you look at the players he's bought, like Harry Maguire is starting to show good form now. Wan-Bissaka, for the most part, has been decent at the football club now. He can improve in terms of his offensive play, but he's been quite good. You look at, you know, other areas such as Bruno Fernandes, like bringing him in was an absolute masterstroke, and getting him 20 million cheaper that was quoted to us 6 months before that. You know, showing patience in that regard was very good. I think when you really break it down, there's been negatives in terms of, like, you know, in-game management. I think that can improve. I think, like, look, the Europa League final, I think, was a massive kind of indication of that. 100 minutes into the game, you take off one of your best finishers for Fred. I can't wrap my head around it, but look, I'm not qualified to be in the job he is, so I'm not going to really overly question him in that regard, you know, but that's something definitely you can improve on. But there's a lot more positives and negatives, in my opinion, in terms of his reign. But this year is where he's really going to be judged, because it's his third season, really. And if he gets the players that he wants, and I think, look, when you look at the ownership, I think they're, because of the whole pressure of everything that happened with the European Super League and everything else that's happened, and the recent kind of plans they've laid out with the Manchester United Supporters Trust, I think he may get the backing that he needs this summer. But after that point, after the backing, if there's no improvement, then I can understand why he would be under pressure. But when you look at where Manchester United were when Mourinho left and Ollie took over, compared to where Manchester United are now, we're in a lot better position, a lot more stable position. Like, the club was in disarray when Mourinho was there. I think you'd remember this, like, I won't say fondly, but, like, you definitely remember this well. Like, when Mourinho left, he was picking fights with players. You know, he was leaving players out just to prove a point. So I remember his last game against Liverpool, he played a back six, and then he played, like, Fellaini, I believe it was Ander Herrera in front of a back six. You know, that's ridiculous. You look at things like that, and the way the football club was neglected almost under Mourinho, and you look now under Ollie, there's a lot more positivity, there's a lot more direction. And I'm not saying at just the first team level. Academy, you can see the amount of talents that are coming out of the academy, and that's been under his watch. Like, new people that got appointed at academy level when Solskjaer came in. So I think you have to look at it and say, yes, next season is massive for him. But even, let's say, if it doesn't work out for him next year, and look, let's say he moves on, which could happen, we don't know. Look, you never know what happens in the future. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is going to leave this squad and this football club in a much better state than Jose Mourinho did. And whoever comes in after him is going to have a team that's nearly ready to prosper to big things and may just need that finishing touch. But I think he's really brought us along since he's come in March 2019. Oh, sorry, not March, sorry. December 2018. I'm forgetting the interim charge where he did take over, and that was a very good run. But I got the permanent date in my head when he got the job. But yeah, look, I'm in total agreement with you, and I think, you know, it's been a good so far, because there's been improvement in the league. But I think, obviously, look, the only way is up now. You finished third. in your first full season, you finished second. Now the fans will want more progression, because in any line of work, any work of progress, the only way is up. Do you know what I mean? You can't, if you're showing continuous progress, you can't really go down after that. So I think this summer is massively, massively important for Ollie.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think a couple of things you mentioned there. They've got to be more wise with the way that they spend the money as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I like Van der Beek, but if you ask me now, and yeah, this is with hindsight, but I'm pretty sure I would have said the same 12 months ago. Would you rather spend that 35 million on Van der Beek, or would you have spent an extra 15 trying to get Sancho over the line? Because Sancho would have helped us a lot more last season than what Van der Beek, for all of his qualities, might as well have not have played last season. Do you know? And I'm not saying that to be mean. I think there's a player in there. So United have just got to be wise. They've got to be a bit more critical with the way that they do the deals. You've already said that. I do think, you're right. Solskjaer will be leaving. If he does leave, let's say that it doesn't go right this season, that he'll be leaving United in a more stable place. But I do, we saw that United finished second, and that is progress. But I still think that United are, probably not as good as Chelsea, definitely not as good as Liverpool on a fair day. If we're being honest with ourselves, the top four. Let's be realistic about it. We're top four on a bad day. We're top 6, top 7. We're not second best by any means. Not a clear, distinct second best. So we do need to improve. I'm not saying we're a million miles away from that. We can challenge with the right signings, but let's be realistic about where we are, and not get carried away either side. With either the praise or the criticism. Let's be balanced about it. Let's be reasonable. Absolutely. So yeah.
And in terms of this season, just before we touch on to the next topic conversation, what would be your moment of the season?
Good question. I'll go with Cavani's goal against Fulham, the one from the halfway line, from about 45 yards, because it was in front of fans. It was the first goal in front of fans. It was at the Stretford end. We'd all been talking about wanting to see him in front of the fans, and we had that moment. So yeah, it was a great moment. There weren't that many to pick from, to be fair, and it's difficult to get that kind of emotion when the fans aren't there. You know what I mean? It just didn't feel like it was the same kind of game for 11 or 12 months. So to see that and to see the celebration with the fans, it was great.
Yeah, that was a brilliant goal. I remember watching it live, and it's brilliant to see. And again, it was poetic that I was in front of the Stretford end as well, because there was a lot of talking, like Ollie was saying in the press conferences, and people are saying like Cavani scoring against the Stretford end. People are saying we need to see it. And we thought we wouldn't see it until next season, but it was a great moment. And look, I can't wait to hear the roar that man is going to get in front of 70. Hopefully, pandemic, providing 76,000 fans next season. Yeah. Him and Bruno, I think, are going to get. When you talk about receptions, I think them two men, particularly look at this season and their contribution, the roar of the crowd they're going to get is just going to be unbelievable. Like, I can't wait to be there in Old Trafford myself to witness it. And again, two players who I really do adore in this current United team. But like, we touched on recruitment, and we touched on kind of this transfer window being very, very important in terms of where we need to progress. I've talked to many people across YouTube, across social media, in terms of where they think United need to recruit in different positions and personnel, etc., kind of who should come in. For you, if you had to pick, let's say, 3 key areas for United next season in terms of first team recruitment, because I think realistically, I think that's where United are looking at this season in terms of the first team boys this season. What positions would you be looking at yourself, and who would you like to see come in to Manchester United this transfer window?
I don't think my choices would be any different to the majority. So the right side of attack, defensive midfield, and centre-back are all priorities. And I don't know on one day to the next which I would say is the bigger priority, because you can argue that the defence helps the midfield and the midfield helps the defence. But I think one of those 2 areas is the most critical, followed by the other. And then you've got the attack, the right-hand side of the attack, which I know Greenwood has done a great job there, but I think he's obviously a really natural finisher, and his talent is surely destined to be in the middle. I'm not saying that he can't play from the right, maybe he can, but I just think we need some kind of delivery from that side, a natural winger in the shape of Sancho, really a more rounded winger who's going to create rather than look to score all the time. We need the centre back sorting next to Maguire. We saw a few games of the season that obviously a lot of people were criticising Maguire before his upturning form, and even when he did increase his form, people were saying, improve his form, I should say. People were saying, he's still not worth 80 million and he's still not very good. But take him out of that side and you see how bad we are defensively. So you know that the thing is with Maguire, he's not the best defender in the world. And Cavani's not the best striker in the world. And Bruno Fernandes, I don't want anyone to hate me for saying this, he's not the best number 10 in the world. But put them in this United side. I'm not saying they could be world class. Like Fernandes, for example, could be world class. But put him in this side and he looks 10 levels above. Well, everyone was talking before about, you can't fit Pogba into this side. It's so difficult to fit a player of talent into this side, and you don't know where he can play. And Fernandes just came in and ran the show. No complications, nothing like that. He just played brilliantly and picked up the slack, which no other player did. So I'm not saying you need the best defender in the world to partner Maguire. You just need someone who is good. You know what I mean? You just need an improvement there. And it's not hard to find an improvement on what we've got there. Someone reliable who's good on the ball will make a massive improvement to this defence. And likewise in midfield. And I mean, I don't want to pick on Fred a lot, but for a Brazilian, he's not very good on the ball.
Yeah,
he's energetic. He's pretty good, like in sort of breaking the lines and everything like that. But his defensive intelligence isn't anywhere near as good as Matic's. But Matic doesn't have the legs.
Yeah, his legs are gone.
It's an interesting sort of conundrum that we've got in there to try and get that right. But there are players out there. Well, you got Bissouma at Brighton, who was apparently available. You ask me names, and I'm not a big person on sort of like saying this is the right name or this is the wrong name. I mean, players that I like a Haaland and Mbappe, and they're obviously unrealistic for United to sign them. But, there are improvements out there, plenty of them. And I'm sure that, United's scouting network has got to be improving because it couldn't have been any worse. So pick a player or two up. They're going to be bargains out there. You mentioned the COVID market, but other clubs every club is dealing in transfers. Every club is exactly the same. They're all, it might even help us because we shouldn't have been financially hurt as much as some other clubs have been. So maybe there are some bargains out there like a Bissouma or apparently Neves. Perhaps not Neves from Wolves, but he's a definite improvement on what we've got. I just don't know if he's got the positional intelligence to sort of elevate us to where we need to be. So there are players out there and it can be improved, and it doesn't necessarily need to be an Mbappe or a Haaland. That's the encouraging thing, is that we can get those players in. And the three areas of the squad, we can surely make 3 signings in the summer. One of them looks like they're close to being done. So, we're obviously going to have some outgoings as well. Plenty to go out. So there's going to be money coming in. I don't think it's an impossible objective to say you can get those 3 areas sorted. Certainly improved. If not in a position to challenge for the title, certainly vastly improved from what we've got.
Yeah, definitely 100%. And I think, everyone thinks it's clearly obvious. Jadon Sancho is obviously on everyone's mind. Literally, for me, I am refreshing social media, Twitter, like a maniac since last week, just waiting for the news to kind of break to see if he signed. But I'd say it'd probably most likely be done after the Euros. I'd say Southgate doesn't want any distractions in the England camp, even though he wasn't in the squad yesterday, which I kind of got a bit giddy yesterday. Though I thought, geez, he's not in the squad, he's going to Carrington to do his medical, but obviously not the case. But look, he'd be a good option on that right wing. It kind of gives us that first natural number 7 we've had since Ronaldo. When you really break it down in terms of wingers Man United have signed since Ronaldo, people can say Angel Di Maria was that winger that United signed, but people tend to forget he was a number 10 for Real Madrid in the Champions League final, and we signed him off the back of that performance. So I think when you look at Sancho, will be the most natural winger we've signed probably since Ronaldo. I think you look at other areas that you're absolutely right. I think centre back is a very big area we need to strengthen, and especially defensive midfield. I think for me, defensive midfield is, again, probably for me the most crucial, because the centre backs giving the ball to the defensive midfielders last season, when you actually look at a lot of the goals we conceded, was as a result of, like, as you said, McTominay and Fred not being able to take the ball under pressure on the half turn, and they give it away in kind of the areas where teams that catch us quick in transition. So for me, I'd be looking to get a specialist defensive midfielder in, maybe someone in along the lines of a Declan Rice, because obviously Jesse Lingard's had a very good season at West Ham, someone who I like to touch on. I'm very happy to see Lingard do his thing there, and if he does get his move there, I hope everything does work out for him. Someone like a Declan Rice, or a Dennis Zakaria, someone like that who is a good defensive midfielder. Obviously, Zakaria plays in Mönchengladbach, would probably be half the price than Declan Rice, because obviously if Man United tax, English tax, all that type of stuff happens, when Man United go in for a player of that ilk. And obviously, look, Zakaria is a player from Mönchengladbach who was a very good player. I seen the other night for Switzerland in the Euros. Very good player. And again, probably would cost half of what Rice would. Obviously, you mentioned Bissouma. I think for me, he's someone who's very gettable. If United want him, I think what Brighton are quoting is 30-40 million pounds. Again, probably half of what Rice would be, or even less than half. So again, I think United, with the way it's going, it doesn't have to necessarily be a Galactico. It doesn't have to be someone who's a massive name. But once, as you said, once it's someone that improves us and allows us to have our shape, because people tend to forget as well, when Solskjaer came in, what got him the job was playing 4-3-3 and playing one defensive midfielder, which was Nemanja Matic when his legs weren't gone. And he played Herrera and Pogba as two box-to-box midfielders. And that would work. Like Bruno Fernandes, before he came to United, wasn't a number 10. He was the number 8 box-to-box midfielder for Sporting Lisbon. And that's the position Paul Pogba is too, really, when you think about it. And that's where Pogba played when Ollie came in. He had the most goals for a midfielder in the Premier League. So for me, I think if United do get like someone like a Bissouma, someone like, it doesn't necessarily have to be Rice, but someone who's a very good defensive midfielder who can take the ball under pressure, can break up play, can bring the play forward, kind of doing stuff what Michael Carrick used to years ago in terms of breaking the lines and being that kind of Rolls Royce in midfield. If we can get someone like that, and it allows our attacking players to get forward, like Bruno Fernandes, Paul Pogba, and I'll even say to an extent Scott McTominay, he isn't a natural defensive midfielder. He's more of a box-to-box player. He's better when he's getting into the box and being an attacking threat. So again, I think there's a couple of signings that can most definitely improve us in terms of our shape. I think a centre-back as well, we looked at the goals we conceded last season. I think Victor Lindelof, there's been points and he's been very good, but sometimes the season not so very good. I think you get a commanding centre-half in alongside Harry Maguire. I think Maguire has come on leaps and bounds since he signed. I think he's shown he's a good defender now. Look, is he worth £80 million? No, but he's shown he's a very good defender, and he showed why Man United wanted to get him in the first place. I think he's been let down probably by the inconsistency of having the centre-back partner, because Lindelof and Boye have been played in and out of the team. Obviously, Tuanzebe came in for a while. He's had his injury problems. He hasn't had a centre-back partner who's been consistent. I think you get someone in, like I know people are talking Varane, but if you get someone even, again, in that's just better than Lindelof and who's more competent and is good in the air, that solves a lot of problems. And again, they have to be comfortable on the ball as well, because again, sometimes we've been caught playing out from the back, but again, I think a defensive midfielder who can slot in between the two of them and can take the ball, that solves a lot of problems. Because I think when Matic plays in the team, when we're playing out from the back, we're a lot better. So again, I absolutely agree with you, Wayne. It is, there's 3 areas that need to be addressed, and I think definitely 3 areas that it's achievable. Now, people talking about Kieran Trippier coming in, the only way I want that to happen is if all the 3 most important areas get addressed first. Then that's a deal that can be done and we don't overpay. Because for me, you have a right back in Ethan Laird coming back from MK Dons, who's a very good young promising right back. And maybe he could be that second choice right back next season, if needs be. I don't think right back is a priority this summer in terms of where we need to strengthen. I think, as you said, centrally, at centre-back, centre defensive field, get the spine right. Any successful, even title-winning team, or any team who's successful in cup competitions in the league, they have a solid spine. when you have a solid spine, as Ferguson said, attack wins you games, but defense wins you titles. So again, get your spine right, and then look. We've discussed on this podcast already, like the attacking talent we have. Like we've our Brunos, Pogba's, Greenwood's, Rashford, Cavani, and that's before we even delve into even players who are on the kind of, I suppose, the side at the moment in terms of Martial, and we've great young players coming up in Hannibal, Shortiri. So like, look, I look at the attacking side team, very good, and you add Sancho to the mix. It's very good, in that regard. But again, get your spine right, and then you can definitely progress and prosper into next season. But Wayne, I just wanted to ask you, because you've done a lot of writing on United, you've done a lot of kind of covering, and you do your own podcast as well. What's it like in terms of like favorite moments? You've watched us through different eras. You mentioned at the start of the podcast that you've watched us during when like so Paul Parker, Mark Hughes, and all them were playing. You've obviously watched the class of '92 come up. You've watched our treble winning team. You've seen us play in 2008. You've even seen Ferguson's last season win the title. In terms of memories, kind of reminiscing on Manchester United, if not just one memory, even just name a few brief ones. What are your favourite moments watching United, or even whether it's at games, writing about them? Like, what would be your favourite memories about the football club?
Yeah, I mean, writing about them is just an indulgence, a real indulgence. So, that's a different thing, because it transcends what football is. I mean, I'm lucky that I talk to former players of United, and that enriches my experience of living my life. Do you know what I mean? That I can talk to, that I'm very fortunate to be able to talk to sort of former players about the game. Ask Paul how the weekend game went or something like that. Like text him in the middle of a game. That to me is a very surreal thing that I'm still not really. I'm not used to it, and I don't want to ever be used to it, because it might mean that I take it for granted. But there are all like things like I think I posted on social media today that 8 years ago today, I was working with Gordon Hill on his autobiography at the time, and he was living in Florida, and he invited me and my wife to go over, because we'd been talking over Skype, and I'd mentioned he was complaining about driving back from Cleveland to Florida, and I said, "You're complaining about something that's one of my lifelong dreams." And he said, "Well, come over and we'll do that drive together." So I was, driving across America with a United legend who scored some of the best goals that you'll ever see in a United shirt. And he's just the nicest person. Obviously when we're traveling across America, he's just Gordon. He's Gordy, my friend Gordy. Do you know what I mean? And he's like that. He's not a guy who scored some of the best goals that ever played for United. He doesn't come across in that way. So he's just the nicest person, the kindest guy. And made one of my dreams come true. So, I've watched football games with him, and that's crazy, and stuff like that. Those kind of experiences go beyond. There's something that I don't associate with my experience of being a Man United fan, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
So in terms of following United, again, I'm looking. My birthday's in May, so it's fallen on some. I've had some big days on my birthday. We won the FA Cup in '96 on my birthday, where Eric Cantona scoring in the last few minutes against Liverpool. So we think about everything that comes into that. It's very difficult to top something like that. Obviously, winning the European Cup was crazy, and all the games that happened for. If anyone's old enough to remember that second half of that season, the way that we were scoring late goals, and coming back from games that we shouldn't have any right to win, and scoring 2 goals in the last couple of minutes and things like that, you'll never. And particularly because it was like 7 or 8 young players who'd come through the club, and we were all the sort of similar age to those players. It's difficult to say that something like that will ever be replicated in football. Even they talk every year about City winning the treble or the quadruple, but you never, even if they did, it wouldn't be the same as the journey that we went on with those players and the way that we were winning those games. And all right, some of the times we weren't the playing the best, but that spirit to win games that we shouldn't have won, or to get results from games we shouldn't have got results from. And the sort of narrative of David Beckham coming back from the World Cup and then coming up against Inter Milan, the narrative of the players being suspended for the European Cup final, and then Keane pulling this masterclass of a performance out against Juventus, the narrative of playing against one of the best Arsenal sides, probably the best Arsenal side that I've ever seen, and having these humdinger of games against them, and then the best game that I've ever seen, the 99 semi-final replay, where Giggs scores the best goal that I've ever seen. All these things happened within 4 or 5 months, and that's without mentioning the winning the trophies and the way that we won the final. That combination of elements coming together, it's 4 or 5 months as a United fan that we'll never see again. I'm so grateful that I was conscious and not too young to still get bladdered for every single game. I could still enjoy every moment of it. And not get beset by nerves every time we play against Liverpool. You have to have a few beers. But then you have like the rebirth of the side after Chelsea, and thinking that Chelsea are just going to buy everything and win everything. So to see Ferguson's last great act of management create this team that had this unity of, like I said earlier, Rafael and Fabio and players like that, who just made you fall in love with the club again in a way that felt even more special, because for a time we didn't think we'd see it. And, that was one of the most successful periods in the club's history, with Rooney and Ronaldo playing incredible football. And then that sort of the last hurrah of the class of 92 with Giggs and Scholes. So we're lucky in our lifetime to have had a couple of periods of time where we've seen, you mentioned Ronaldo's performances in that time as well, just to have 2 periods of dominance like that, and still be only just turned 40 is an incredible blessing. I know a lot of people thought they'd never see United win the league again, and they did, and perhaps those people passed away before that second great side under Ferguson, or third or fourth great side, I should say, the one that won the European Cup for the second time. We got to 3 European Cup finals in a few years. It was just great memories for United, and we're blessed to have so many. But if you were to sort of push me on the biggest the most memorable time, it'd have to be that 4 or 5 months where it just seemed nothing could have stopped us in sort of January to May 99. You never knew where it would end as well, because you felt, we were scoring late winners in January and then February, and then equalizers in March and things like that. You're thinking, this has got to end at some point. It can't carry on forever.
Yeah.
It carried on all the way to May 99, and it, just phenomenal, and very, very blessed to have seen it.
Yeah, look at that treble season. Like, obviously I was too young to remember. I was only 3.5 then, I was only 3.5 then, but like my mother and father telling me about the whole time, the United matches. I was living in London at the time. The United matches beyond the whole time. The 99 final, they told me, is so special. Obviously, I've went back and I've watched the season reviews. I've read about them. I had the Manchester. When I was younger, I had the Manchester United encyclopedia. I used to be a freak. I used to literally read up everything about the football club, do as much research as I can, and obviously growing up in the time where Rooney, Ronaldo, for me, that time was peak Manchester United for me growing up. Then to see that team, obviously we done the 3-peat. When you really think of that 2008 season, we were a bad referee, and there was a bad referee against Portsmouth that day that potentially robbed United away from the treble. When you think about the FA Cup in 2008,
the season after that, we were a couple of kicks away from everything. Really, bad refereeing decision. Fletcher doesn't get sent off in the semi. You got a better chance against Barcelona. Penalties against Everton. We should have had a penalty in that semi-final as well. So we were like fate and kicks away from winning every trophy that season. It was crazy. Crazy couple of years.
It really is. And then you think, obviously, you move on a couple of years later, how Sir Alex won the Premier League in 2013. It was very symbolic how he done it, like Brian Van Persie from Wenger. That kind of really signified for me. Fergie was saying to Wenger, "I won." Basically, that for me was just, that was signifying, obviously Wenger done the unbeaten season and Fergie won Premier League titles in his tenure and won the treble. But for me, that really signified dominance. It was like we bought your best player. We went on and won the league. Now, we obviously, none of us could have foreseen, or we didn't want to foresee what would come after Sir Alex kind of left. But to see him win the league, with the likes of an agent Rio, agent Vidic, Evra, Carrick, then you had like players like Cleverly, on the team, Antonio Valencia, kind of at a crossroads whether he is a right back or a right midfielder, and you kind of when you seen how he won the league by 13 points with the current kind of, let's say, 23 4-man squad he had, it was amazing, and it really showed his greatness. I think you'll never see a manager like Sir Alex Ferguson ever again. I know Pep Guardiola is doing his own thing with City, and he's winning trophy after trophy. Still can't win the big one in Europe. Me personally, I don't know if he ever will. Last season was probably his best ever chance. You like to think other teams in Europe will probably build again, the Madrids, the Barcelonas, Bayern Munichs of the world, but no one's going to touch Sir Alex for me, and he's going to be he is the best manager of all time, and I don't think anyone is going to even come close to that ever. And in terms of look, my favorite memory for me, just touch on one singular moment before we finish, is the 2008 final. Growing up in a house full of Liverpool fans, again, they're all shouting for Chelsea that night in the sitting room. I remember John Terry walking up to take the penalty, and I remember I was down on my couch, had the pillow over my face, I was in tears, and to hear Clive Tilsley then saying he missed, that was special. And that moment, then I knew we were winning this game. I knew we were going to win that shit off that point. But again, that team really signified Sir Alex rebuilding. Sir Alex knew when to move on a player. When was the right time to move on a player and rebuild? And that's not something you see now. You don't really see that too often now. Players are kind of hemorrhaged at clubs. They stay there for too long. This doesn't happen to United. You look at Spurs, you look at other clubs like that, Liverpool. There's players who are there for a long time. They struggle to move on. Fergie knew when to do that. Fergie knew when to say, right, David Beckham, you've been a great player for the club. Probably time to go. Obviously, he regretted letting Jaap Stam go. He came out and said that was one of his biggest regrets of his tenure. But Sir Alex, I think he gave us so many memories, and he look other greats of the club, Sir Bobby, George Best, Dennis Law. This football club's had so many greats, and it's just be good to see us come back to where it's not where we should be, because no one has a right to anything. You have to work hard to get success in this game. Nothing's given to you, but when you look how successful this football club is, and you look how big this football club is in terms of history and global fan base, it'd be great to see us back at the pinnacle again. But I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done in the process for that to happen. Wayne, just before we go, and just before we wrap up, do you have any upcoming projects, anything you're working on at the moment?
Yeah, I'm working on a couple of things at the moment. If people want new stuff from me, there's the second series of Barkley and Barton on Manchester United, which is a history series of podcasts, which I recorded with the legendary football writer Paddy Barkley. They're out through if you search Talking Devils on any podcast provider, the new series is on there. It's looking at the early Fergie years. So that's out every week at the moment. In terms of books, I'm working on a couple of things that I can't say too much about at the moment. I'm, drip feeding that information out, and a lot of people are sort of guessing. But the one that I already mentioned there is the Raphael and Fabio book, which is coming out in August. And honestly, it's been one of the most rewarding books to work on. Everyone knows those characters as boys. I mean, Raphael, his character's not going to surprise you, but Fabio's story and the way that he tells it is so emotional that there's been times where I've shed a tear writing it. It's so emotional. But the thing that really comes through about both of them is that they love United. They love United so much. And they really give you that feeling of what a privilege it is to play for the club. And you come away knowing how much they love that. And it's not forced. It's not false. You know that love is real. You can feel that. So, yeah, it's been a massively rewarding book to work on. I'm really glad that that's the next thing that's coming out, because I can't wait for people to read that. I mean, I'm always busy. I mean, my agent is sending me emails all the time, stuff that I've got to do. So I'm not complaining because, like I said, it's food on the table, and he's writing about United. It's the best thing ever. So I'm not going to complain about that. But just I'm always writing about United. You don't have to pay for the books all the time. There's stuff online that people can read if they want to read for free. So and just let me take the opportunity to first of all thank you for having me on, and thank everyone who might be watching this who has read something that I've written. It's really appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks very much, Wayne, for coming on. It's been a very enjoyable conversation here this evening. And so it's been good to get your insight. That's obviously on the stuff you've done in terms of producing, writing and stuff like that. And obviously the work you've done with the Best Family, that really, really was a big eye opener. It was great to hear kind of, your insight on that. And also, guys, I know this is live now, but if you're watching on the replay later, because I know the Euros are on, you're probably not watching right now as of then. But the link for Wayne's website in terms of his books and his work is available in the link in the video description. So you will be able to catch all of his stuff in there. So that is in the video on YouTube. Also do catch his Twitter handle as well, at Wayne S. Barton as well. Give him a follow. He does tweet about Manchester United and also tweet about his work as well. So do catch him over there. And also, guys, you can catch my Twitter handle at Keane_Franey if you do want to come over and have a chat about football, and also chat about anything else. But thanks very much everyone for watching. And do smash the like the video, do subscribe to the channel. It does go a long way in terms of helping us. And also, we will be back later on in the week where myself and Shane, we will be talking all things Manchester United. We'll talk about the transfer window and kind of where we need to go from here. But thanks very much everyone for watching. Thanks very much again to Wayne. It's been an absolute pleasure, a privilege to have him on. And so I've very enjoyed the chat that we've had here this evening. But thanks very much everyone, and we'll be back later.